Hello and welcome to New Mexico Rising. My name is Dan, and as that big sports game that we can't talk about because a big sports industry will try to sue us, we're going to get you set up for your big sports game party. It sounds silly when I say that, right?
Now, Dan, have you ever dreamed of having your wings and drinking them too?
And coming up a little later, we got filmmaker Darren Aronofsky, yes, creator of Pi, Black Swan, and many more right here on New Mexico Rising. What if the missing piece in your health journey isn't something you eat or do, but an energy frequency that you actually absorb? It's called quantum energy, and it changes the human body, home, and objects, kind of enhancing your overall well-being. And there's an actual technology that advocates say can help protect the body, support a natural rest cycle, reduce stress, and neutralize the radiation that comes out of our cell phones. I need most and almost all of that stuff. So, what is all of this and how does it work? Well, here to explain is health coach and biohacking expert Aggie Lal. How are you, Aggie?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Not good at all. Usually people are saying, yeah, I'm good, I'm fine. No, I'm tired. What's going on with me? And
at least you're honest, because most people are tired. That's the problem. Like, we're tired, we don't know why, and we're like, what is going on with our bodies? So I think this is like where, biohacking, you called me a biohacker. Biohackers are just a bunch of people who are so tired of feeling tired that we're like, what can we do to constantly feel better? And so we're figuring out different ways to hack our biology to feel that way.
All right. It says quantum energy. What is that?
Quantum energy is energy of tiny little things that's inside of me, inside of you, and all around us. It's nothing new, Buddhist monks and chi masters would know that, and they were able to focus this energy into objects, right? And now the science is discovering, like, what if we can use that quantum energy to neutralize the EMFs, electromagnetic field frequencies that are everywhere around us, right? The 5G, Wi-Fi, microwaves that we don't even understand the effects that can have on our bodies.
Okay, this next question says, everyone is exposed to radiation from cell phones and Wi-Fis, but how do these electromagnetic fields called EMF affect our health and wellness? I saw recently that there was a study that AI has found a way to actually map where people are standing in house off of Wi-Fi signals. So
wow.
They like bats could use the echolocation of their Wi-Fi signals to bounce off of people. So how is that affecting our health and wellness, or do we know anything about it yet?
And this is a very good question, right? Like I don't know about you, but I find whenever I travel and when I'm in nature, I feel immediately calmer, like more focused and less overwhelmed and anxious. And so, scientists are now discovering that, there might be like big effects of EMF on our body. And so that's where quantum energy comes in. And companies like Lila Tech built these incredible blocks. They have built a block that neutralizes 99% of EMFs on our bodies and helps us like feel in more harmony with ourselves, right? So I don't know if you ever struggle with anxiety. I know I did, and it's not a fun feeling. And whenever I started using Lila Tech, I was just like, oh, my sleep got better. I feel a little bit less overwhelmed. Maybe I don't have to move into the woods anymore. Maybe I can just live my normal life in the city and just use, technology like this one or this one, which is a little necklace that allows me to neutralize the EMF radiation.
Yeah, everyone deals with a little bit of anxiety. Not me, not at all, ever. All right, so how do we shift that negative energy, I assume?
Well, that's the thing. It's like I said, I personally use the block. So what you do, whether you have a drink or even food, you just put inside this block. Even the having that block in your business at home neutralizes the EMF. So it's super simple. There's nothing really like a 25-minute morning routine that you need to do to actually feel the benefits of the quantum block. And I noticed incredible difference. I don't know, we just had this conversation before we went live that we could all use a little bit of good sleep. And so whenever I sleep with the block inside my bedroom, I notice that my sleep is much, much deeper and, the best anti-aging hack.
All right, so where do we go for more information on any of this?
Yeah, it's leelaq.com, so LEELAQ.com.
Well, thanks for joining me this morning, Aggie.
Thank you, and go get some good sleep, please.
I'm going to try. That's impossible, though. I'm going to try. AI, or artificial intelligence, is everywhere and is growing rapidly. But as Jessica Curtis found out, it's not just a tool for big corporations. It's a powerful tool for small and medium-sized businesses, as long as they use it in a safe way. Here's more.
According to iStock's visual GPS research, over 75% of people globally are already using some form of AI technology in their day-to-day work. Grant Farhall, Chief Product Officer at iStock, says when using AI, it's all about creating meaningful connections with your audience.
Our own research shows that over 40% of small and mid-sized businesses are using AI-generated content for marketing purposes. Generative AI tools can help businesses create those important connections that drive long-term value if done correctly.
iStock by Getty Images has released a new tool, Generative AI by iStock, which allows businesses to safely turn their creative vision into powerful content.
Generative AI by iStock empowers you to create compelling visuals to engage your audience. You can explore using AI with confidence by creating images and then downloading them with a commercial license and iStock's standard legal indemnification.
For more, visit ai.istockphoto.com/ITT.
When was the last time you had a perfect week of sleep? If it was me, never. In a recent survey, 78% of respondents couldn't recollect the last time they had, while 55% couldn't remember the last time they even had a perfect night. Let me think about it. Yeah, no, not at all. When sleep affected functions like metabolism, brain health, and health conditions like heart disease and obesity, depression, and many more, why do many of us still neglect this vital components of our well-being? Well, here to answer that is Dr. John Heiss, Vice President of Product Innovation at Herbalife. He's a scientist, ultramarathoner, and adventurer. He says lifestyle choices could be the culprit, but getting real rest is possible. Let's welcome him to the show. Dr. Heiss, how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me on. Excited to talk about sleep early in the morning.
All right, so let's start off with a survey. Do Americans even know what a good night's sleep is or how to even get it?
Well, what we learned was that virtually everyone knows what a good night of sleep feels like. But the most alarming finding in the study is that basically most people don't know how about going to get that good sleep on a reliable basis. So we're here today to talk a little bit about some lifestyle tips to help you get better sleep.
It's kind of like tough to break the habits that we have at bedtime. Well, where should we start to try to ensure that we're getting a good night's rest?
Well, look, we're all stressed and overworked, so we're doing a lot of habits to try to combat and relax. People grab a glass of wine, they're having late night snacks, they're staring at their phone, checking social media before bed. I'm guilty of that too. I think people don't realize the profound nature of those implications on their sleep. So some simple tips. You don't have to live like a monk. You're still going to have a glass of wine. Maybe have that while you're making dinner or during dinner instead of later at night. Same thing with food. Trying to move that away from bedtime is going to help your sleep. Some easy things to do. Dimming the lights around the house. That can actually help you get to sleep a little bit faster. An herbal tea. Or, if we can read a book instead of looking at our phone, that's going to have a huge benefit on our sleep and health impact in the long run.
You're also kind of like an athlete and an adventurer. Do you, and you do things like a 500-mile bike relay through Death Valley. Tell us a little bit about long-reaching effects of poor sleep and not only on our bodies, but also our moods.
Yeah, sleep's obviously important for athletic health, important for cognitive and emotional connections with people. And then those health benefits. There's a strong connection between sleep and Alzheimer's disease, 30% increase in risk of heart disease, like we talked about, depression and obesity. There's a fantastic study that showed people who are sleep deprived tend to gravitate towards fattier and sugary foods. And so cleaning up your sleep hygiene might actually help you lose those last couple pounds that you're looking to clean off. Another surprising thing is that, disrupted sleep actually leads to this accumulation of beta amyloid in our brains, and that's thought to be the cause of dementia. So there's a lot of reasons to think about prioritizing sleep beyond just, feeling energetic for the day.
The survey also ranks the best and the worst of night's sleep in the nation. Where did our state, New Mexico, land?
Yeah, so New Mexico got a little bit of work to do, coming in at 37th in the nation. But every state was really quite far below that recommended average of 8 hours. So no matter where you are, making those small lifestyle tips, trying to get a little more sleep is going to help you in the long run. And you're going to feel a heck of a lot better too.
All right, where can we go for more information and learn more about the survey findings on this?
Yeah, we got the survey findings and general wellness tips posted up at herbalife.com.
Dr. Heiss, thanks for joining me this morning, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
In the realm of healthcare, groundbreaking advancements often mark the beginning of new hope, especially right now for those with high blood pressure. There is an innovative new technology that's set to revolutionize the way we treat high blood pressure, a condition that's affecting millions. So joining us today is Dr. Barry Bertolet, an esteemed interventional cardiologist, here to shed light on the FDA's recent approval of the Medtronic Simplicity. So welcome to the show, Dr. Barry. How are you?
Thanks so much. Appreciate me having me here.
Okay, let's start with the basics. How would you explain hypertension? What is that?
So hypertension is also known as high blood pressure, and it's pretty easy to measure. It's a cuff on the arm, and with that, we can measure what your blood pressure is. When it's above 140 on that top number, that's high blood pressure. And so there are a lot of people in the United States that have that, literally millions of people that have hypertension, high blood pressure. And when they have that actually places them at increased risk of a stroke or heart attack, heart failure, kidney failure. And we have found that by controlling the blood pressure, that we can substantially reduce the risk of those bad things happening to people.
Can you tell us about this new era of treatment for high blood pressure?
Yeah, so forever we've had diet and we've had medications as a treatment for hypertension, for high blood pressure. But we've found that there's a lot of people where either the medications don't work or they can't really stick to the diet or can't tolerate the medications. And so their blood pressure has been poorly controlled. But now recently the FDA has approved basically the first ever device to help us lower people's blood pressure. And that's this Medtronic Simplicity system. With this is a minimally invasive technique. We get access into a blood vessel, and we can place this spiral catheter inside the kidney artery, and we can send radio frequency waves through the blood vessel wall out to the nerves that are right outside the kidney. And then with that, we disrupt these nerves. We sort of calm them down. They're sending signals to the brain that cause the high blood pressure, but when we calm them down, the blood pressure can drop. And in most people, we're seeing about a 9 millimeter of mercury blood pressure reduction. But it's, we believe, permanent and sustained over time.
So what does this new FDA approval mean for patients with higher blood pressure?
So the important thing for patients to understand is when we have FDA approval, that means that they've looked at this device, this procedure, and they have found it, number one, to be effective, meaning that it can lower the blood pressure. There can be meaningful, significant changes. But the important thing, number two, is that it's very safe. And so now we have a safe and effective device that can lower the blood pressure, that when we lower that blood pressure, it's always on. It's always effective, meaning that a pill may work, but the pill's only going to work when you take it. Once you've had this procedure, it's always working for you.
Well, Dr. Bertolet, where can we go for more information and learn more about this?
Yeah, I would steer you to the website beyondhbp.com. So HBP stands for high blood pressure. So beyondhbp.com.
Thanks for joining me this morning, my friend.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity.
The big game is coming, and soon that means it's time to plan a super watch party. I know that sounds silly, but I can't say the actual words because I don't want to get sued by the people that run the big game. All right, so here to help is a big game day party expert and former NFL player Ovie Muhaley. Ovie was an all-pro fullback for the Atlanta Falcons and Baltimore Ravens and is a former network TV football analyst. Welcome to the show, Ovie Muhaley.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dan. Good to be back.
All right, why is a great party part of the big game experience?
I mean, A great party is a part of the big game experience because it's about making sure you gather all your friends, all your family, all the people you love, and make sure they celebrate. You got to celebrate life. You got to celebrate the combat sport we call football that we all love. But the best way to celebrate it is with the right food, the right drinks, the right tips, and, having everything, where it's supposed to be. And that's what I'm here for, to help you out.
All right, what is something that's essential for an epic watch party?
Well, to get started, big games should be watched on a big TV, and there's no bigger and better TV than the Roku Plus TV. It will be sure to wow your guests with its cinematic picture quality and incredible sound. It's the #1 selling TV operating system in the U.S. and Mexico. Bet you didn't know that. But plus, it comes with Roku's streaming OS, and they make watching your favorite sports easy with Sports Zone, a feature that puts live and upcoming games in one convenient place.
All right, surprises with something unique that impacts the game watching experience.
Ooh, I like this one because no one thinks about this. I had a party in my house a while back. It was way too many people. It was way too hot. I needed a solution. The solution was the ultra-modern Sensi Touch 2 thermostat. It's amazing the way we now manage temperatures through Sensi's top-rated app that pairs with their room sensors. And the sensors is the key. We've all been there where we put our thermostat on a number, but it's not that number we're feeling in the room. It's because the sensors are misplaced. So this way you can put the sensors where they need to go. So it's currently on sale for under $200 through the end of February, easy to install, less than 30 minutes, and compatible with a wide range of systems.
All right, do you have a beverage that'll impress party guests and pretty much get everyone talking?
Now, Dan, have you ever dreamed of having your wings and drinking them too? Of course you have. We all have. No more dreaming. Truly is making this a reality. Truly Hard Seltzer is spicing up your game with the launch of their limited edition Truly Hot Wing Sauce Hard Seltzer. It's available in a 4-pack with 16-ounce cans just in time for the big game. So this is a perfect game day watch party edition that combines 2 game day staples to bring a zesty kick to Truly's light seltzer base. So forget the MVP, the big game. This time around, the real MVPs are the fans who show up to your watch parties willing to share their coveted can of Truly Hot Wing Sauce Hard Seltzer.
All right, give us a suggestion for a memorable big game party.
Oh yeah, this one is going to kind of tie everything together, and it's what the kids call your gear, your drip, your swag, your gear. Like, you got to make sure you show up representing the team that you love and support. None of this, I'm just going to wear a polo or random khakis or a dress. Like, you got to wear the stuff. Like, I mean, the hats, the socks, the jerseys. You got to put up some streamers, the colors. Create the environment. Because you're not at the game, you want your guests to feel like they're at the game. And if you don't set the example of having your gear on, no one else will. So that's my tip.
All right, where can we go for more big game party tips?
For more tips, go to tipsontv.com.
Thanks, Ovi.
Thanks for having me.
According to the CDC, the U.S. is undergoing the second largest COVID-19 surge since the start of the pandemic. Experts predict that 100 million people, or pretty much 1 in 3 in the United States, may get COVID-19 during the surge. The risk of developing long COVID is even more startling than the number of infections. A recent U.S. Senate Help Committee hearing revealed that 60 million Americans are living with long-term COVID, with up to 4 million Americans out of work due to the condition. And today we have Dr. Philip Levy, professor of emergency medicine and associate vice president of translational science at Wayne State University, joining us to give us the insights on COVID-19 and the potential impact of long-term COVID on some of his patients. Good morning, doctor. How are you, buddy?
Good morning, Dan. Doing very well. Thanks for having me.
All right, so what exactly is long-term COVID or long COVID, and why do people need to know more about long COVID?
That's a great question. And as your lead-in showed, right, there's a lot of different terms that people have for this. There's long COVID, long-term COVID, post-acute sequelae of COVID. But bottom line for all of that is it's a constellation of symptoms that develop weeks to months after that initial COVID infection. So while people get COVID and they start feeling sick, fever, cold, cough, sore throat, what have you, those symptoms generally abate, they go away. And people who experience long COVID have other things like confusion or brain fog. We've heard people talk about that. They may have a persistent cough where nothing comes up or feel short of breath, with minimal exertion. They may even experience insomnia or mood swings or anxiety. things that didn't exist before COVID that now are seemingly part of their lives. And those symptoms may persist for months to years after having that initial episode of COVID. So it's a very important thing for people to be aware of because it's going to affect their lives.
So how does long COVID affect like their quality of life day to day?
Absolutely, right? That's important. So if you weren't experiencing shortness of breath before you had COVID, and now all of a sudden you go to walk your dog, or you're walking to the corner store and you feel winded along the way, that's going to be very, very troublesome and disconcerting to people. And, if you can't sleep, if all of a sudden, you're feeling anxiety when you never had that before, that's going to be tough. And as you mentioned before, it not only affects people's daily living, it may affect their ability to work and to, go out there and make a living.
So who's at risk most for developing long COVID?
Yeah, that's a really important question. So foremost, people with severe COVID infections are at high risk for developing long COVID. Not surprising, right? You have a bad episode of COVID, a lot of inflammation's going on in your body, and it seems like inflammation is perhaps one of the keys to long COVID development. But who develops severe COVID, right? People who have comorbidities, things like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease. People who are a little bit older, advanced age has long been one of the most important risk factors for severe COVID. But let's not forget about the vaccines. People who are unvaccinated are almost twice as likely to develop long COVID. And that's because vaccines confer protection against developing severe COVID. Basically, when you get a COVID infection and you're vaccinated, your body's much better at marshaling a response, an immune response to fight off that infection. And that's what prevents people from getting really sick from COVID.
So what can we do to prevent it?
That's an important question. The most important thing is to not get COVID, and that seems impossible now, right? 90% of Americans have had at least one episode of COVID. But it still holds true that principles from the very early days of the pandemic. If you have COVID, isolate and stay away from other people so you don't get them infected. If you're going to be around someone who has COVID, or there's an outbreak, in your office or anything like that, wear a mask for the immediate period and try to protect yourself. But getting vaccinated still helps. So if you've had COVID, you didn't develop long COVID, you can still get vaccinated and protect yourself from the next infection you might get and developing the consequences of that.
So when is the best time to get a COVID vaccine? And is it really kind of worth it to get vaccinated this late into the season?
Yeah. So first off, COVID, unlike the flu and common colds, doesn't exhibit the same seasonal variation. We know that especially up here in the north where it's cold in the wintertime, people are more congregated in indoor settings, which does increase the risk of developing respiratory infections like COVID. But COVID can happen anytime. We see people in the summertime and in the spring getting COVID. So the seasonal time doesn't really matter. I would say the most important time to get vaccinated if you've never had a vaccine is now. Right? Get out there and get that vaccine. But if you've had one or two or three or four, or whatever number you may be on, it's important to keep following the trends and getting updated vaccines because the vaccines are trying to catch up to the evolution of the COVID virus itself. We know that we're in a new variant now, JN1, which is the reason why we're seeing such high peaks. These variants are very infectious and they can, get people sick pretty quickly. So what we want to do, people who have COVID or are vaccinated about 3 to 6 months after that episode of COVID or their last vaccine, they should be looking to get that updated vaccine so that they can get additional immunity and additional protection from getting a severe infection.
All right, Dr. Philip Levy, where can we go for more information and maybe even make ourselves an appointment to get a vaccine?
Great question. So vaccines.gov is the website that was held up by the government early in the days of the pandemic and still provides a lot of tremendously beneficial information on COVID itself, information on vaccines and new updated versions of the vaccines that are available, and local resources, places that people can go to not only get information about vaccines, but even make an appointment, like you said.
Dr. Levy, thanks for joining me this morning.
My pleasure to be here, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Imagine a New York City where fantastical monsters roam the streets. Well, that's the story behind Monster Club. Monsters take Manhattan. Eric Doodles King navigates a new life in Manhattan while mysterious creatures threaten to turn the city upside down. So joining us today are the creative geniuses behind this adventure. And I also get the honor to welcome one of my favorite filmmakers, Darren Aronofsky. Plus, we have Ari Handel, a scientist turned writer. And those two have been working with each other for about 20 years. Plus, we have bestseller comedic storyteller Lance Rubin. Welcome to the show, Darren, Ari, and Lance. How are you three?
Thanks for having us. Excited to be here.
All right, Darren, first question for you. You're renowned for your visually stunning and thought-provoking films. What inspired you to transition to the world of children's literature with the Monster Club series?
Well, I wrote a screenplay based on my childhood. I based it in the reality of the childhood, based it off a bunch of the people I grew up with and the schools I went to, some of the teachers I had, added a bit of magic, and then wrote a screenplay. But sometimes you write screenplays and they can't be figured out how to get them made. And then a writer friend of mine who was getting into the movie business asked to read some of my favorite scripts I had worked on. I sent him Monster Club and he said, why don't you turn this into a kid's novel? And I went to Ari with that idea and Ari lit up. And we never love to have stories that we've worked really hard on just sort of sit on a shelf and collect dust. So we started the long process of trying to figure out how to write a young adult novel. Friends connected us with Lance over here, who had tremendous experience working in that genre, and he gave us many strands of wisdom. And then it came out, and it was successful, and people wanted another one. But now we no longer had a screenplay beneath all of it that we could sort of pull out of. And so we were like, wow, we better get Lance to help us. And so the three of us sat in a room for many hours and came up with the next chapter for Monster Club Monsters Take Manhattan. Lance, your books often deal with humor, human emotion. You just recently worked with Rhett and Link to try to put together their book.
Yes.
What themes did you particularly want to explore when you're working on this one?
Ooh, well, I just loved, that it's dealing with that time in a kid's life when you're still doing the childish, well, quote unquote, childish things like drawing monsters with your friends. But then you're starting to age out of that, and some friends are aging out sooner than others. And then so Eric, in our case, the protagonist, in the first book, is trying to hold on to, let's keep drawing monsters. And the friends are like, I don't know if we're going to do that. And there's something about that moment in a kid's life that is so rich. And there's so much to explore there. And then plus these genius creative minds bringing their specific blend of, creative visionary to the project. It's just so exciting to work on because you've got the profound nature of growing up, but also all these cool monsters and action. And it was a great blend. It was a joy to work on.
Well, thank you three for joining me this morning. I want to ask all these questions about the movies, but I can't. I know deep down inside, I just want to say, does he find out the meaning of life right after he puts a drill to his head? That's what I'm trying to figure out for Pi, all right? Oh, look at you, all right? I don't get the answer from that. All right, you got to check it out. Monster Club, Monsters Take Manhattan. It's now available in bookstores everywhere. Thank you three for joining me this morning.
Thanks so much, Dan.
And that is it for New Mexico Rising. I want to thank you for tuning in and checking out the show. If you actually want to be on the show, all you got to do is email me. That's newmexicorising@gmail.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Just look up New Mexico Rising TV and go to our website, newmexicorising.com, where we have merch and other things that you can buy. Until next week, that was New Mexico Rising.